romantic love is not a real thing. Okay? And I'm not just saying this with no statistics to back it up. According to the American Psychological Association, approximately 40 to 50% of first marriages end in divorce. The divorce rate for second marriages is even higher, with approximately 60 to 67% of second marriages ending in divorce. Beyond that statistic, though, it just feels like romantic love is destined to fail. Like everywhere we look, we see people cheating on each other. We see people breaking up. We see people getting a divorce. We see people going on dates and it not working out. We personally experience bad dates, breakups, divorces, cheating. It's everywhere we look. It can be a little disheartening. It can be hard to have hope at times. Throughout my life, my opinion on romantic love has changed a lot. Growing up, I believed it didn't exist because I'm a child of divorce and I didn't have a romantic couple to look up to. So I just sort of believed it wasn't real. I got hit with that reality that romantic love is complicated very early on. But the way that I internalized that was, well, it's just not real. Everyone wake up. It's not real. As I grew up, though, I started to open up my heart to the idea of romantic love because with age comes wisdom and context. And I started to realize that just because my parents got divorced doesn't mean that real love doesn't exist. You know, there's a huge world out there. And there's a whole lot of people in happy marriages, right? My friends' parents love each other. My grandparents love each other. It's totally possible. On top of that, I started to develop far deeper feelings towards boys. And I was like, well, I really love them. Like, I feel like I love them. So it was a combination of experiencing it myself and also opening my eyes to the world around me, realizing that there's more evidence to pull from than what's in my direct, immediate life. And so I started to believe in romantic love again. And I became a firm believer, I'd say. It became a priority for me to find romantic love in my life. And even when I would date and it would fail, I would stand true in my belief that romantic love is real. It is rooted in reality. It is possible. But as I'm getting even older, I'm starting to sort of go back in the other direction. I don't have this blissful naivety around romantic love anymore. I've experienced enough with my own two eyes to now start to question the concept again. I don't think I'm fully back to where I was as a kid, where I'm like, this is not real. This doesn't exist. This is just a complete illusion. And it's not something that's worth striving for. I don't think I'm back there, but I'm also not blindly believing in it anymore either. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm starting to question the concept of romantic love and what that experience is for us as humans because of my own life experiences, but also because the statistics are pretty damning, you know? 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce. Ouch. What's happening? Like, it's so fascinating that there's something that's so fundamental to human life, finding romantic love, and yet it's so destined to fail. What's the disconnect? As I'm maturing and facing these realities, I can't help but ask the question, why? And my brain immediately went to, well, romantic love must just be an illusion. I'm starting to wonder if the failure rate is due to the mere fact that romantic love is two human beings delusional. And once true reality sets back in, that delusion goes away, the relationship inevitably ends because it was never real to begin with. Is romantic love not true love, but rather just an explosion of irrational emotion and sexual desire that is mistaken for love, which is separate from explosive romantic feelings? Do we think that we're in love, but really we're just experiencing something else that is not real? Well, it is real, but it's not real love. Does that make sense? Oh, here we go. Oh, God. Let's go down the rabbit hole. Let's go down the rabbit hole of romantic love and really, really get to the bottom of things. Because let me tell you, if I come to the conclusion that it is just an illusion, great, then we'll do other stuff with our lives. But I need to know that now. I need to know that now because it's fucking Friday. So I need to know what to do with my plans tonight. You know what I'm saying? Don't make me explain what I'm saying. Okay, so let's really dig in and dive in. Let's really dive and zoom in to this simple yet complex question. Is romantic love an illusion? Let's start out with some definitions. What is love? Wow. Wow, Emma. So cringe. Ugh. It's cringe, but I do have to read the definition of love. And I personally prefer the Buddhist definition, so I'm going to share that with you now. Love is unselfishly wishing others to be happy, to be delighted to be in their presence, to offer our affection and smiles and hugs and help freely without wanting anything in return. The first time I read the Buddhist definition of love, I had an existential crisis because it really showed me that love is being selfless. That's kind of what it is. And I just never thought of it that way. But I think it's especially interesting in the context of romantic love, which in theory is just this definition of love in addition to sexual attraction and romantic gestures, right? That's the only difference. This definition of love immediately made me realize how rare romantic love really is, if it does exist. If it can exist, it's definitely really rare because love in itself is challenging. To truly love someone in a way that is selfless and genuine is already challenging. You have to be in a certain place in your life to be able to love other people in a platonic way, in a familial way. It gets even more complicated when romance enters the picture because romance adds a whole other level of emotional turmoil. Being able to love someone platonically or familially is actually kind of complicated. Even that is challenging. It's even more challenging to romantically love someone. There's something about romance that is a bit more challenging on the ego. I think the reason for that is you and the other person are choosing each other because you think that the person that you chose is better than other people. And the person who chose you because they think that you're better than other people. It's like the initial union of a romantic relationship is rooted in ego in a weird way. It's like it's an ego boost when you both choose each other. Both of your egos get boosted from that. Now imagine how complicated that becomes because the whole idea of love is that it's deeply selfless. It's about the other person feeling loved and feeling happy and feeling supported and expecting nothing in return. While a romantic relationship fuels your ego, which kind of doesn't go hand in hand with selflessness, right? A lot of times we're selfish in relationships, romantic relationships especially. We don't want our significant other to be happy without us. We don't want to do things for our significant other without getting things in return. The definition of love really proved to me how rare real romantic love is. Now, what's the definition of illusion? What's an illusion? An illusion is a distortion of the senses, which can reveal how the mind normally organizes and interprets sensory stimulation. Let's really try to figure this out. Is romantic love an illusion? In my opinion, yes, most of the time. Let's start with the honeymoon phase. What is the honeymoon phase? It's the first few months to few years of a relationship where everything is sunshine and rainbows. Everyone's on their best behavior. Everyone's still excited it's sort of this dreamy period of the relationship. It's the very beginning when things are fiery and hot and exciting, and everyone's just sort of happy to be there. In the beginning of a relationship, you may think that you love the person you are with. You may think that this is the love of your life. And the reason for that is because you're experiencing an extreme amount of happiness and excitement due to the chemicals that your body releases when you're in love. Researchers have scanned the brains of people who are madly in love and found a heavy surge of dopamine, which is something that I've talked about quite a bit, even though I'm not a scientist and shouldn't be. Dopamine, along with other chemicals, gives us energy, focus, and obsession. So when we're in a new relationship, our brain is releasing a bunch of dopamine and we're just on top of the world with this other person. We're in love. We're excited. I would argue that being in love is different than loving someone. And I know that that's sort of confusing. I just feel like truly loving someone is so much deeper than being in the honeymoon phase with somebody and being madly in love with someone, but you don't necessarily love them. Because going back to the Buddhist definition of love, it's like the idea of that is being deeply selfless. And I don't know. Like I think being in love is a feeling that's somewhat irrational at times. I think truly loving someone is rooted in reality and selflessness. I don't know. I might be missing the mark here. You guys can let me know on various social media platforms if you disagree with me. Back to what I was saying. All of this dopamine distorts reality. You're experiencing almost a high from being in love, from falling in love. And you're experiencing unnatural levels of excitement and focus and obsession. And it's inevitably going to end. But the feelings are so strong that you can convince yourself that you've met your soulmate. When in reality, you're just experiencing the normal high that comes with falling in love. That's it. This is the honeymoon phase when your brain is still releasing all of these excited chemicals. The problem is once those chemicals die down a little bit, once your brain stops releasing them, what happens? Well, the rose-colored glasses that you'd been wearing for the entire honeymoon phase come off. And now you're being faced with reality, the reality of the relationship. A lot of times the honeymoon phase ends and couples break up because what they thought was true love was just an illusion. That's all it was. And the reality of the situation is not what they thought it was going to be. They thought that they had something different. They thought that they had something explosive. They thought that they had something kindred. When in reality, it was like, no, that's just a lot of dopamine and being excited about a new thing and being on your best behavior and having the time to give to one another and maybe temporarily being selfless, because it's easy to do that for a few months to a year. It's hard to do that for the rest of your life. Do you see what I'm saying? The honeymoon phase it's like playing house, when you're a kid and you and your friends would pretend that you were all, okay, that's such a niche reference. Now I'm realizing that nobody's going to know what I'm talking about. My friends and I used to play a game where it'd be like, okay, you're the mom, you're the dad, you're the older sister, and you're the younger brother. And now we're going to play house. And then, the parents would boss around the kids. Such a weird game. Did anyone else do that? It's almost like the honeymoon phase is like mimicking what romantic love is or should be. Honestly, I think the honeymoon phase is a whole lot of pretending. And I don't think that we do it on purpose, but we have the energy to dress up and pretend like we're in the perfect romantic, loving situation, but it's not real. And it always comes to an end. And so I think it's safe to say that the honeymoon phase of the relationship, the first few months to a year, is an illusion. It is rooted in delusion. And the last point I'll make on this is, according to science, this is no coincidence. This honeymoon phase serves a biological purpose. Some experts believe that our brains release these intoxicating chemicals to help us pass on our genes. It's a biological mechanism that's innate in us to become attracted become excited and need to connect romantically. Humans also have a tendency to put their partners on a pedestal in a way that is irrational. I look back at my first few relationships when I was younger, and it boggles my mind in retrospect. Boggles my mind that I put them on the pedestal that I did. Now, this is not to insult those boys, but I looked at them like they were like godly to me because I was so in love with them, or I thought I was. I was infatuated. I was obsessed. I couldn't even see their flaws. I was blind to their flaws because I was so obsessed with them. You know what I mean? I was just like, oh my God, they're perfect. But in retrospect, I look back and I'm like, those are just normal boys, my love. Those are just normal boys. And they were absolutely flawed, as am I, by the way. I'm also flawed. We're all flawed. But they were very flawed in many areas. And I completely ignored their flaws and put them up on this pedestal and convinced myself that they were God's gift. Why? I honestly think the reason why we put our partners on a pedestal is, number one, probably because of the way that they make us feel. All that dopamine probably plays a role in how we elevate them in our minds. But I also think that a lot of humans have this innate desire to find the one. We want to find the person. We want to find our person. I think part of that is probably biological, but I also think part of that is societal too. There's this pressure to find your partner. You know, it feels so good to go home on Thanksgiving and say, Grandma, I found the one, bitch, so you can shut up now. It feels so good to do that. And I think that pressure can give us selective vision. We only see what we want to see and we ignore what we don't want to see. Every relationship I've ever been in, casual, serious, doesn't matter. I've put those boys on a pedestal without fail. Actually, there's maybe been one or two times where I didn't. Okay, maybe twice I didn't put boys on the pedestal. Weirdly, that was intentional though. I wanted to experience a romantic experience with somebody who I didn't put on a pedestal to see how that made me feel. Spoiler alert, not great, but it was still fun. And I don't have regrets. But majority of the romantic relationships I've experienced, I've put the people on a pedestal, and only years after have I realized, what the hell was going on? What the hell was I thinking? They're fine, but it's also I really put them on a pedestal, in a way that was so delusional and weird. But only when I look back can I realize that. Moving on, I also think we can confuse security with love. Sometimes being with someone can bring us a feeling of security. And in a lot of ways, that's selfish. If you're in a relationship just to feel secure about yourself, that is not love, because love, in theory, is selfless. And so if you're in something for your own personal comfort and that's it, that's not real romantic love. That's something else. You know, it's easy to stay in a relationship to avoid being lonely. It's easy to stay in a relationship to help keep our egos and confidence up. It's easy to stay in a relationship to provide security for the future. I know I'm going to have someone when I'm old and gray. When deep down, you don't really love them. You're in it for some other sort of selfish reason. But you might convince yourself that you're in love because the security that you get from that person makes you feel good in a way. And that good feeling can be mistaken for love. You might think you're experiencing love, but you're not. You're experiencing security. And that's different. That's not real love. I think the reason why I feel like romantic love is an illusion is because a lot of times it is. Simply put, a lot of times it is. Is it always an illusion? No, I don't think so. I do think that romantic love can be completely real. I just think it's really hard to find.